there are so many opportunities to get a house with $1,000 down, and I'm sure you can find $1,000. Having some really fun conversations with sellers and buyers. I'm really excited. We are going to be talking about first-time home buyers and really digging into what your options are as a first-time home buyer. Scott said it perfectly that this is your time to shine. Like, there is so much opportunity right now. There isn't a lot of heartache as a first-time home buyer other than the interest rates, but you know, you're paying 100% interest on rent right now, and rents are going to continue to rise. So you may as well take advantage of something to stabilize your outflow. So Scott, can you talk a little bit about what are the types of programs that you offer to first-time home buyers, and kind of explain, you know, we could talk about programs, we can talk about down payment. I think a lot of people think they have to put massive down payments, and that's certainly not true for anybody, not even just first-time home buyers. But can we talk first about what are those programs that are available to a first-time home buyer?
Yeah, that's great. There's a number of different programs out there, and there's also a number of different marketing pieces out there, right? And some will market it as either a first-time home buyer or an educator or a first responder or something like that, right? When you really get down to the basics of these programs, is they are a kind of a down payment assistance program, right? So for that first-time home buyer that might only have, you know, $10,000 or less to purchase a home, these programs are perfect for them. And so there's a couple of different programs out there. There's a statewide program called CHAFA. There's a Denver Metro program that we really, really like. And they all have different qualifications, right? They have credit qualifications, income qualifications. You know, so as a consumer, as a buyer coming into it, you know, when we do have those conversations, we're kind of, you know, filling out applications and figuring out which product is going to be the best for them. At the end of the day, it's a percentage-based product. And so, you know, when you're looking to get assistance on your down payment or your closing costs, these programs have a couple of different avenues, but for the majority, it's a 4% assistance. So 4% of your loan amount can go towards your third-party fees and your closing costs, down payment, all that stuff. What it kind of basically does is it alleviates, I don't know, 70% of all of the down payment and closing costs, and it leaves about 30% left over for the consumer. And so that's how you're able to ease it. Let's just use some round numbers. Let's say the buyer gets $15,000 in down payment assistance help. The programs work a little bit differently. One of the programs, basically that money will sit on the property as a second mortgage. They don't incur interest. There's no payments. None of this money does anything but sit there. But when the buyer sells the property in the future, that money gets paid back to that entity from the equity of their home. So I borrowed $15,000. I sold my property later for $65,000 profit. Cool. I'm going to pay back my $15,000. And then I walked away with $50,000. So really great product because the consumer can get into it. They're still investing into their home. They're just choosing to make the investment later out of the equity of the property instead of today out of their bank account. So that's a great product. There's another one that is actually forgivable. So if the consumer is in the home for at least 3 years, at the end of the 3 years, that $15,000 is forgivable. Yes. Forgivable. And so same scenario, right? 5 years goes by, you sell for 65, you keep 65. So nice. Either one of them works, right? At the end of the day, whatever program that buyer fits into is still a bigger benefit, because at the end of that 5 years, typically your ROI is a positive and you're earning income or profit off of the purchase of that home. And so it makes sense. And again, what we're starting to see now is if we are at negotiating tables with the seller and the property's listed for 400 and we're thinking of maybe coming in a little bit lower, 390 or something, and we're trying to get a deal, you know, the relationship between the buyer, the lender, and the agent is crucial in those negotiations, because we would rather give them a price that they're comfortable with, in return get the credit or the concession. And so, you know, hypothetically, you're purchasing the home using these programs and your out-of-pocket expense is $8,000, but the seller gives you $7,000 in, credits or concessions, then technically you can buy that house for $1,000.
What did you say?
Technically you can buy that house for $1,000. So we're starting to see that now, that first time home buyer that has maybe, 8 to 10 or maybe $5,000 can buy a home for as little as $1,000, and again, not have to pay anybody anything back until they choose to sell their house later. It's phenomenal. So we get a
That
lot
is
of
really
people
nice.
super interested in that again. Yep.
Yeah. And that's just to clarify, we're not financing 100% or 101% or what we saw in a few years back. This is actually putting down money creatively towards the down payment.
Yep. 100%. And so, again, all those programs have different qualifications and, limits, income limits, all those kinds of things. And so we'd love to connect with anybody, answer any of those questions. But, on the majority of kind of the contracts we're seeing, we're getting some type of seller love, some type of seller contribution or credit. And that first time home buyer is hitting home runs and grand slams all day long, because again, they're out there potentially purchasing these homes for, $1,000, $2,000. And it's a great ROI at the end of it. It's phenomenal.
I heard something, and I can't remember where I heard this from, but even if you've owned a home in the past many years ago,
Yeah,
you would still qualify if you're not
Yes.
currently owning a home as a first-time home buyer. Can you talk a little bit about that, or?
yeah, phenomenal question, right? So we hear first time home buyer. So there's a couple things to that question. We hear first time home buyer and we assume that it's true to that nature, right? Like you could have never owned a home. The actual definition of first time home buyer is not owning a home within the past 3 years. Okay. So that's the true definition. And with a couple of these programs, we've helped people purchase a home with these assistance programs. And down the road, they have sold the home and literally repurchased the next home with the same program. Okay. So there are true first-time homebuyer programs that you could have not owned a home within that 3 years. But that's the misconception, because there are other programs that are down payment assistance programs that you can buy the home, sell the home, and use that program again if you choose to. You just have to know which one you can fit into and do you qualify. So that's kind of a weird buyer stigma out there and some false information. And so we can easily steer and guide people on that. But you can easily use the program and turn around and use it again if you qualify the right way.
I think that's really good, because what I saw happen more often than I'd liked to see was folks in the beginning of the COVID market sold their house. And then the COVID market got crazy while they were living in a short-term rental, and then became long-term renters.
Yep.
So if they hold out for a little bit longer, they might qualify for a lot of these programs and qualify for all these down payment assistance. Does it matter in how, like, if they have assets? So like, for example, a couple of people I've seen this happen to, they walked away from the sale of their house with a decent amount of profit, like upwards of 100,000. So if they still have that amount of money sitting in the bank, does that impact their ability to take advantage of these programs?
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
Nice.
What you basically do in that world is you show them kind of both options. You say, hey, if you wanted to use the equity that you just made off of that sale, here's what a normal, standard conventional loan would look like. Hey, here's an option where you can use assistance if you chose to. We have some folks that, didn't quite profit 100,000, but walked away with a good amount, maybe 40,000, and they could have easily just used that for the down payment. But the next home that they found was like perfect lot, perfect size, perfect community, perfect views, perfect everything, but it was kind of stuck in the 90s or something, right? And instead of investing everything into the property, they used this program, which freed up their cash flow. Then they could turn it into and redo the floors and paint the walls and update it, which obviously brings value to the home. And so it's just a creative way to channel the money to have it make the most sense for whatever that buying scenario would be.
And that, folks, is exactly why you need to work with a good lender, because a lot of lenders will just say, oh, well, you have that money. All right, we're going to put you in conventional. Instead, like really understanding the big picture of it all and finding the solution that best works both for you financially and for you to be able to like live in this house comfortably. So
Yep.
100, you just totally proved to everybody why it's important to work with someone like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that comment. And, what we try to do on our side is really just educate, provide information, advise where it's needed. But a lot of times when you're doing this and you're showing multiple paths, and whether you're not using this program or, you've sold the home, you have equity, cool, you can invest it into your home, but maybe you can invest things other places and diversify a little bit. Like we try to provide a bunch of different options for consumers. They then go and talk about it at dinner and try to figure out what's the best. Typically, when you do that, the path shows itself, right? As you start to explore option A or B or C or D, eventually you're like, cool, I know which way I'm going to go. And
Right.
then that's the direction. And typically that direction is the right direction. So providing more than just one path is 100% crucial, moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that's really valuable, especially with first-time home buyers, because a first-time home buyer has a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that are so unknown that from when you watch like television, we all know HGTV, they don't even talk about the pre-qualification side, which drives me nuts because it's like, you got to get pre-qualified before I can show you a house.
Yeah.
That's step one, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to make sure that we are showing you a house that is within your means. I just remember like there was a show on HGTV. I can't remember what it was called, but the two brothers, the two twins, where they would go and take buyers to this beautiful house. And they would be like, yeah, but you don't qualify for this.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
remember
it's
that.
not in your budget. And then they would kind of try to sell them on, updating a home that needs some work. But you don't want to have that feeling, because if you go and look at something that's outside of your budget, you're constantly comparing other things to that home when you shouldn't have compared it to that in the first place. So it's really important to really understand what your numbers are first. In addition to kind of what we're talking about in the financing side, on my YouTube channel, I do have a series, 90 Days to Homeowner, where I go into detail and I send you a weekly email as well. For that time period where we talk about like, what are all of the stages in the home buying process? What does it mean to go through an appraisal? What are all the points in the contract? What are all the points in the contract where you can decide that this isn't the right home for you? Does the financing not work? Is there too much issues with foundation or anything that are found during finance or during the appraisal? So we walk through what that process looks like. And then today we talked a lot about what those programs look like that are available to you. If you want to know what that looks like, or you want to start your journey, I will provide a link to that 90-day homeowner challenge, which will then trigger a call from both Scott and I, where we'll reach out to you, or somebody from Scott's team will reach out to you to find out what your timeline looks like. It doesn't have to be in 90 days. It could be in 6 months, and we can really help you find a roadmap. If your numbers aren't where you want them to be today, his team's amazing at helping you create a roadmap to get you to where you want to be. And so those two things, those 2 points in that workflow or that journey, I like to call it the 90-day to homeowner journey, really helps folks to really step into home ownership and start that first step in building generational wealth. Real estate, like we talked about many times, is a path to creating wealth. And in my opinion, it's one of the lowest barriers of entry to being able to do that when you have strong partners that'll help you. And with these down payment assistance programs, you have so much opportunity to get you in the door. And like Scott said, there are so many opportunities to get a house with $1,000 down. And I'm sure you can find $1,000. We're coming up on refund time. I don't know what that is. I haven't had one of those in a while, but tax refund time, where a lot of folks will start to save that so they can start to buy a home. Before that time starts, let's get you a plan to make sure you're ready when that happens.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have anything to add?
It's just a ton of great information right there. I think at the end of the day, typically buying a home is the biggest purchase we make, whether it's your fifth or 10th or whatever. It's still typically the biggest financial decision, especially if it's your first, right? So that first home really should be gathering information, feeling confident with the people around you. It's a triangle of trust. It's the buyer, it's the agent, and it's the lender providing accurate information. I just had a conversation with the first-time home buyer who hasn't even talked to his lender, and I can't get a hold of anybody. At the end of the day, right, this process should be educational. Communication should be seamless. And as a first-time home buyer, you should feel very confident when you're out there writing offers because of all of the work that's led up to that point. Applications, pre-approvals, gathering information, talking about loan scenarios, communicating with your agent on strategy. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, but with the right partners, again, tons of success happening, right? A lot of W's with trying to get properties for low price points. But you know, that first one for that first time home buyer, you know, got to be open communication with accurate information, and right, you'll find a ton of success in this type of market.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us. Hopefully you've grabbed some good tidbits. This was just surface, right? If you want to really dig in and know exactly what your situation is going to look like, give us a call. We'll get you hooked up and we will help you with that journey. One of your most important purchases in your entire life, and you need to have strong partnerships, and we're happy to help you to get that done.
100%.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great week.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.